Top of a new morning, new day, good people. It's your brother. You see the caption 100K is the new paycheck. Check the check. I pose it as a question. Have you asked yourself that question? You may be a person who makes that. You may be a person who does not make that. But what I want you to really think about is if you're not making that, I want you to ask yourself how much, how does that apply to you when it comes down to comparing those who are making that and more, 100K, 200K to 300K a year, they're saying that they're struggling. That's not enough money for them to survive or to really live how they want to live. You know what I'm saying? So what does that mean for those that aren't making that? But let's listen to what this lady has to say. I've prepared uh some cross-reference points to go along with this question to help you answer it for yourself. Uh, just to put our minds, on the same page when it comes down to like where are the majority of the people in America really going financially. Let's listen to what this sister has to say. Now, the brother there, he did a reaction. That's the other half of this. If you want to hear what he has to say, you can always go to his page and listen to, what he had to say about the sister. But I just wanted to highlight that, let her speak for herself. I don't know what led her to making the video. I don't know what profession she's in, or what career field she's in, or, but it goes along with the narrative of what I'm presenting. I had asked AI a similar question about those who make 100K plus a year, living check to check, and it gave out a summary. Now, if you want to see what AI had to say, all you gotta do is just check out my page. Look for the picture that's like a calendar with a red marker circling paycheck to paycheck. Read that caption. I provided like four resources, cross-reference articles, video. But look at what AI has to say, about it. But in brief, I took some notes and I'm gonna give you like a brief outline verbally on this particular video. So 100K a year on average estimate $8,333 a month after they take out federal taxes. That's $2,000 a month. Estimate, which breaks that down to 6,333 a month, which is the take home on estimate. If you were to factor in the estimate of expenses of rent slash mortgage, that's around 2K to 3K a month. If you got a car note, 500 to 1,000. Not even factoring in gas. If you factor in gas, that's another 200 to $400 a month. Insurance, 300 to $500 a month. Utilities, $200 to $300 a month. Food, give or take, depending on the size of the family, but on average, estimate $500 to $800 a month. Some of y'all may say, well, that's lowballing it, but it's just an estimate. It's just to, throw some figures, out there. Total anywhere between 3,700 to $5,800 a month. Right? What's left over? On average, estimate $533 to $2,633 or $2,633. That's what's left over after everything is paid out of that $8,333 a month prior to taxes, which, like I said, the breakdown after the 2K comes out with federal taxes, and we didn't even talk about the state, but just federal taxes alone, $6,333. So out of the $6,333, what's left over after all of those expenses on average or given or estimate, $533 to 2633 a month, right? And that was, they say it varies, with lifestyle, tastes, habits, vices, things of that nature, right? So, moving right along, this is another. This is you may not see how this ties in, but this is a it ties into me because it's showing how even with this being on the table, you got a lot of people that are losing jobs, and these are high tech. Look, do you understand? What Amazon just did, a major employer throughout the nation, throughout the world, right? Amazon made their 2,847 engineers spend 8 months documenting every code pattern, every debugging workflow, every optimization trick, then fed it all to AI and then fired them. You could check out the artificial intelligence page on Instagram, just to give you some of the special effects of what they chose to add to it. you know, uh, to really capture that, and to present that to you. So, what is that going to mean to those almost 3,000 engineers who went to school, probably went to school debt, student loans, probably still paying, off their school, and they're getting scrapped, they're getting replaced, and I would like to think that, these engineers right here fit within side of this, you know, upper middle class or, 100 to 200, 300K probably plus, depending on, their specialty. But even with that, they're still being replaced. So in a lot of cases, they may very well end up, in unemployment, right? What does that mean? So I went through the wealth page on Instagram, adding to this narrative, more than half of Americans earning over 100K are living paycheck to paycheck. And look at what they said right here. Around 51% of Americans earning over $100,000 annually are living paycheck to paycheck, a situation that's exacerbated by high inflation and financial pressures, right? This number affects an increase from previous months, indicating a growing trend among higher income earners. Despite their substantial earnings, these individuals face challenges in managing their finances effectively in the current economic climate, underscoring the widespread impact of inflation and related financial strains. Okay. Now, this right here is what led me because when I'm reading like memes and captions and seeing videos and things on social media, that's really what led me to uh, sourcing AI, which ended up providing me with like 4 or 5, I say like 3 to 4 cross-reference sources because I be wanting to see like where are these particular pages or influencers or whoever podcasters, like where are they getting their information from? So before I just lock it in as a fact in my mind, I'll do a cross-reference. So that's what really led me to sourcing AI, reading the articles, watching the video that it provided as cross references for the data that it provided me with, and then I provided it and shared it with you. And to me, that's like a process of learning, making sure that what's being put out there on memes, because anybody can make a meme, but it's like, all right, well, where are they getting this information from? I typed in 2026. Most of the cross references that they provided me with. One was a 2026 video, which looked like it was a new YouTube channel. You can watch that. Like I said, just check it out on my page. But most of the articles were from like 2023, working its way up to like 2024, 2025. So even with that, even though it's not all 2026 related, as far as like what we would consider to be current news or current information or current statistics or current data, What it does communicate is that this has been a progressive, ongoing issue. It's not something that just started off in 2026. It was information and a reality that people, news outlets or whoever, you know, these data research institutions or foundations, they've been looking into this year after year after year. So it's been a progressive study, and here we are, 2026. Not too far from half of the year already being, behind us. We're approaching June. It'll be here, before we know it. But nevertheless, you may say, well, why is this a focus? Well, I like to keep up with what's going on in not just in my own personal life, but what's going on in the greater society. And these are problems that they're saying like 47 to 62% of the national population are going through in every major high earning economical bracket, right? But what about the people that are doing 80,000 a year, 70,000 a year, 60,000 a year, 50,000 a year? What if they're single, right? Or what if you have two, two people that are doing 40,000 or 50,000. One may be doing 40,000, 50,000, the other may be doing 60, 70,000, whatever the case may be. What I'm saying is that if the 100K and above are catching it, then what I'm saying is, what are the people that are doing less? How is it affecting uh, that greater population? Because there are more people who are doing less than 100K a year than there are those who are. 100K and up, 200, 300, 400K plus. That's like the 1, 2%. Or if we were to just, you know what I'm saying, give it even more room for marginal growth, let's just say 5%. You know what I'm saying? But the 100Kers and above are not the majority, is what I'm saying. So if the 100K plus are going through this check to check, what I'm saying is what's happening day to day on an economical level to those who are doing less, or half of that, 50, 60K, a year. But what's the solution? There are a lot of solutions. There are a lot of other ways to make money. But what what I want to point out is, folks, this is not gonna get better before it gets worse. And when I say worse, I'm not talking about like doomsday worse, Armageddon worse. I'm talking about harder. Like, let's just say, to those of you that who are gamers, I'm not a gamer, but I understand gaming, because a game is a game, regardless of how you play a game or what game you play, right? But in gaming terms, right? Because I have played video games before when I was younger, teenage years, I don't do it now, but I have done it when I was younger. So I get it. This is more advanced now, but the game's gonna get harder, is what I'm saying, right? It's not to say that like life is over, but I think it's time for the people to start asking, yourselves and ourselves real questions when it comes down to how many more hours are you gonna be able to sell to somebody else? Right? How much more of your health are you going to have to sacrifice? How much more time are you going to have to be away from your children, from your family, to enjoy the very things that you're working hard for to afford? How much, how much time are you actually getting to enjoy the fruits of your labor outside of you having to labor to get the resources that you need to be able to pay for the things that are the fruits of your labor? But as the game gets, harder, more advanced, as workers become I guess less needed, right? This is what I'm pointing out right here. As workers become less needed and companies begin to replace certain tasks more and more with automation, with AI, with robotics, that means less income to no income. What, unemployment, what snap welfare, like, it's like, what is going to be the alternative, is what I'm saying. Are you asking yourself this question? Now, in one of the articles that I read that's attached to the post that I'm telling you about, with about the paycheck to paycheck, it was saying that people tend to think about money at least two, three, four times a day. How are you thinking about money? what will be your plan B? Or will your plan B or your plan C have to become your plan A? Because the game's going to get harder, folks. That's what I'm saying. All of this data is basically showing that whether it's higher inflation, inflationary costs, whether they're saying it's going up or going down, they're saying that things out in the marketplace are still not coming down. So that means that you're going to have to pay more to get less. Rents going up, mortgages, whatever we talking about here as far as like monthly expenses, it's not coming down. And what they're saying is that the cost of living is outpacing the average person's earning potential, or what people are making is not keeping up with the rising cost of things, the cost of living. So the cost of living is outpacing more than half of the people in the nation's earning power, which is going to lead to more bad debt, right? When you're already probably already in a debt hole. So it comes down to, what's the solution? What is going to be the counter to these economical woes? At some point, what I'm seeing, right, is that the people are going to have to at some point realize that trying to do it all on your own, selling more time, getting two, three more jobs, right? Because you still only got 24 hours a day, right? Is that gonna actually help you to to continue to break even and to get ahead? So, like, we hear about revolutions all across the world. We hear about the wars that are going on. But what I'm seeing, all revolution means is radical change. Radical change is radical change. You got health revolutions, you got cultural revolutions, you got social revolutions. What the people in America need is an economical revolution. It means a radical change in how the average person views making money. The way that people that view making money and earning and getting money legitimately, right? It's because it's going to have to change. That's what the reality is communicating. That's what the reality is communicating. It doesn't mean quit your job. It doesn't mean to not do what you're currently doing. But at some point, the people are going to have to understand that you're gonna you're gonna have to learn how to leverage, meaning residual income, passive income. First, you got to know what you got to ask yourself, what is residual income? Why is residual income important to people nowadays? Why is it important to not just be filing taxes or be in a tax bracket wherein you're taxed the heaviest, but you have zero write-offs, right? Why is it important to have a 1099 attached to to your economical portfolio, so that you can get write-offs, so that you can get into the wealth tax bracket? You know, why aren't you why aren't you in a 1099 or the wealth tax bracket? Why are you in the tax bracket that every time you get a raise or you enter into a higher income salary bracket, what the information is saying is that then it only means that you're going to be taxed harder. Why? Because that's the way the game goes, back to the game. So how can you play this game, this economical game, in such a way wherein you're not as heavily taxed as you're being now? And then depending on what state you're living in, it determines whether how high your sales tax and your shipping costs. All of these things matter. But what if you could, write off your phone, right? Write off your gas. What if you could get paid not just by, upfront with what you're earning and what you're worth to the market or to your employer, what have you, but what if you could get paid on the back end as well when it comes down to tax time, wherein now, you know, your basic cost of living and things that you normally are doing can be attached to a 1099 or something that that's making you extra money while you sleep, you know. I mean, there are several ways to do it. Every way doesn't fit every person, but what I'm saying is that at this point, everybody should have a 1099 attached to their economical portfolio. You may say, well, you know what? I don't want to sell. I don't want to do this. I want to, but find, okay, well, find out what works for you. You know, it could be uh, renting out your car. Residual income, passive income is income that works for you. It's something that you set in place one time. You create it, and just it spits out cash for you either daily, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. But you got it's basically like creating your own money machine. But you have to be providing value to some market or to a company, or you may create that value. It could be an ebook, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be whatever it is you want it to be. You know, um, and it's not to say that certain things require more of a skill set, time for you to learn how to do things. This is the reason why I've been showing people how to turn consumerism into residual income. Why? Because you don't really need like a special skill set to know how to be a customer. Everybody knows how to spend money. So if you could take $100 bare minimum, right, and attach it to consumerism, right, or to an inventory that's already in place, uh, that's already been set up for you, then the only thing that you're doing is attaching $100 a month to a consumerism that could turn into residual income. But you have to do it cooperatively. And me personally, I don't see why cooperative consumerism cannot be turned into residual income very easily, because when you look at the average community, most people are shopping at the same grocery store. Most people are shopping at the same gas station, getting gas at the same gas station. So you're already, as communities, as families, as a people in a zip code, you're already spending money at the same distribution locations, because that's all a store is an outlet, is a distribution outlet. They're distributing some kind of commodity or some type of services and goods to a community, but you're doing it more so physical, hand to hand, face to face. But brick and mortar is rapidly becoming click and order, folks, and a large amount of time is being spent online nowadays. So don't underestimate the power of social media. Don't underestimate the power of being able to click a button and to make things happen, right? So, I just want to point this out. I want to know, what are your solutions? If you care to have this discussion, feel free to drop it in the comments. What residual income and passive income, ideas have, you implemented or that you're thinking about implementing? Um, it's just something to talk about. I think that this is something that we need to be talking about, because there are a lot of people that, you know, it appears by way of the data that are economically suffering in silence, struggling in silence. But it doesn't have to be that way. Just like how people are up here on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, X, aka Twitter, and all of these other outlets. These platforms can, in fact, be utilized to monetize and to create residual income and passive income by those who are involved and who are interested. And the easiest one that requires to me, from what I'm seeing, the least amount of skill set, folks, is consumer referral marketing. Just like how you got thousands of people that's following you, thousands of people that that are being followed, in some cases millions. What if you could take a fraction or percentage of the people on your page in these groups, right? In these chats, right? In your DMs, and organize these numbers as consumers and attach a minimum of $100 a month of consumerism, right? To to a company that's willing to share its profits with its consumer base, right? That doesn't require selling time. That doesn't require sales. That requires a intentional agreement to do a thing, a common thing, all together at the same time, and that will help to produce residual income for people all across the nation. See, that's the thing. Is the potential of this is so great to fix these economical problems, not just for people that are doing 100K and plus a year, right? I'm just pointing that out that this used to be the esteemed salary bracket, 100K plus to like the average American, right? But now it's baseline. It's like baseline. It has reached the paycheck to paycheck margin in this current economy. And like I said, it's not going to get any better. It means that you're going to have to step your game up even more so just to live average. That's what this is communicating. So for people that are making less, what is that going to communicate for those that are not making 100K plus a year? So I'm just here to offer solutions. I'm not just here, to try to, stick my finger in a wound. I'm just pointing out the problem, the progression of this problem, what people are going through, and just letting people know, like, hey, at some point, the people are going to have to come together, put a bare minimum together, and agree to do the same thing to make things better for all those involved. That's my presentation. Like I said, you see where I got this information from. If you want to cross-reference and look deeper off into this, to see why I saw this as being a valid issue to present and offer solutions, check out my post on my page that's entitled, you'll see the picture, paycheck to paycheck. Read the caption, read the question that I asked AI, uh, and check out the source articles, the video, and the materials. And if you can relate to this on a direct level and you're looking for a solution and you know people who want to do something about this inside of their personal lives instead of just sitting back and letting the ship go down economically, and who don't want to be victims, of the natural progression and evolution of society and the economy, that's a conversation that we can have, if not up here, like I said, I don't mind getting on phone calls, DM me, um, you know, it don't cost you nothing to look into possible solutions for you and your family. All right. So with that, it's your brother. Take care of yourselves. And I'm gonna end this. And like I said, it's been great talking to you. It's something that I think that we need to be looking into. Peace.